Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin rainbow chart and current Bitcoin price action. So let's start off with fear and greed. And as you can see, surprisingly, at least to me, crypto has popped back up into greed territory. It was down in neutral territory just a few days ago. When we zoom out, we can definitely see that we have this downtrend of lower highs and lower lows, somewhat similar to what we saw in March of last year. So we'll see how long this takes before we can get a bounce back up. And then overall, again, I've been trying to compare whether or not we are going to get an alt season or some sort of cycle top anytime soon. When we had that last cycle, greed stayed up and elevated for about 4 months or so. You can see here from November all the way through the end of February, and then alt season and newer highs that were 3 times higher were right over here. Yes, there was another peak for Bitcoin in November of that year too. So maybe we are still in that 4 year cycle phase. We'll get over to that data in a second. Of course, as we see these drawdowns, I'm going to keep showing you this chart until we get to the top, until we get alt season. Expect these pullbacks. This cycle, the average pullbacks have been around 20%. Last cycle, there's a lot of 30% pullbacks, especially in here. And then 2017, there was a lot of 40% pullbacks. So this is normal. I know it sucks to see, but of course, price cannot just go straight up. As we look at the altcoins to buy and something to be prepared for, that is the hope and the promise of alt season. Hopefully, we get alt season. And what alt season is when there's a rotation, a large rotation from the money that's all the money in crypto that's in Bitcoin starts rotating over to the large caps, the small caps, the altcoins, the Bitcoin miners. That is what we are waiting for. And again, last cycles, that happened inside the month of one of the tops of the peaks. And then going over to the alt year index, you can see alt season, alt year, it's still trending in the right direction. We still have higher highs, higher lows. We do have a higher low here. And so there might be some possible good areas to buy, good discounts for your favorite altcoins. So now and for however long we're down here for the next few weeks or month even, do look for deals because this probably will spike up again sometime towards the end of Q1. And then going over to the Bitcoin rainbow chart. So if you are new to crypto and Bitcoin, the Bitcoin rainbow chart shows how there is this logarithmic regression. Log scale goes up by factors of 10, and then it regresses over time. We have diminished returns, even though those returns can still be great. So you can see that in 2015, when Bitcoin price was 230 bucks, 2017, it got all the way up to 20,000 at the very peak. And so each cycle over time, you can still make great returns, but you're not going to get as many multiples of those returns. Now, a couple factors I've been considering as far as Bitcoin in the top this cycle, I've been looking at the orange, and one of the reasons why I've been looking at the orange bands is because we see this pattern how each halving, you notice that the price has gone up a band. Okay, so there's reduced volatility there, at least from the halvings and the bottoms. But then from the tops, you'll notice that it goes down a color band each time too. And so if we're looking at a top in April, let's say, and you're looking at that orange band, maybe you're looking somewhere around 155,000. If you're stretching it out towards the end of this year in 2025, maybe you can see those two orange bands, that lighter orange one's around 150,000 to the darker orange band being around 190. Of course, if you want to hear more about other cryptos, altcoins, mining stocks, subscribe. I like talking about the price action with those, looking for good deals and discounts. And so Let's get this connected. Sweet. All right, so what do we see for Bitcoin? So woke up today and you'll notice that Bitcoin is coming down towards the 100-day moving average. You can see that once it lost support horizontally, you can see all these dips back here. It has gone down. And so I would expect, it looks like maybe it had a nice rebound in that time. Well, no, it's still falling. So I would expect it to try to get some sort of support around that 100-day moving average. This is right at around 88,000 where that is. If we go out to the weekly, you can see here, I do have on the buy sell signals with the Fibonacci candles. We had this doji and this buy signal appear last week. And so I was wondering, maybe we're going to get a bounce here, but that got invalidated right away. And of course, we have a weekly buy signal. That's not good in the near term. And you can see where the 20-week moving averages are right there around 84 and then 80,000. The defining line between being bearish and bullish, not that you shouldn't buy when things are bearish because you can get discounts, is at around 70,000. And that's that former all-time high area, especially around 2021. One thing I looked at last week with all of you is there are some other indicators. I have to take off this one here. There are some other indicators to show that we should be looking around that mid 80,000 area. And one of those indicators is the Hull Suite indicator. You can see what I just pulled up right there. So the Hull Suite indicator, you can see the numbers to the right at around 88,000. Again, 88,000 is where that 100-day moving average is. And I want to see whether or not Bitcoin gets a bounce off this or goes underneath it. It can go underneath and get support at the 50-week moving average again, like it did last year in 2024. But one thing I'll note here is that last cycle, when it was no longer going underneath that Hull Suite indicator and it got that last bounce, you can see here that was October of 2020, and that was about 6 months or so from the top and where Altseason was. So maybe it can get a strong bounce off that indicator here. And you can see in 2021 there was a number of bounces off it when it's pretty bullish, but it still went underneath a couple times. So we're just trying to throw on different indicators and see if there is some sort of confluence. We want to take the different data that we see historically and put it together in order to make a case on whether or not we have good value times to buy or possible good areas to sell. And so let's do a couple things here. Let's first draw a trend line from the peaks of 2021, and you can see price action getting underneath that trend line. It's still holding on to it, but it is getting underneath it. We also have this trend line that Bitcoin's been in love with since the very start of this bull run from the bottom, and it's getting right underneath that as well. If we take a look at the Fibonacci retracement, there's a couple ways to look at this. We can take a look, at least shorter term, take a look at this fib. Let's clean this up a little bit. There we go. And you'll see that Bitcoin, it got above, and this is off log scale, by the way. It got above the 1618, almost to the 2618 there at around 113K. But you can see on the daily, the 1618 and the 100-day, more convergence around this 88, 89,000 level. So I think we have the fib, we have the Hull Suite indicator, we have the 100-day moving average. A lot of areas there to look for some possible support. Again, the 200-day moving average and the 50-week, it's in that 70,000 range. But we'll address that when we get there. And if we get there, if we zoom way out and just take a look at a fib retracement. So we're going to go from the 2021 high to the 2022 low. That ad loves to keep popping up. You'll see here that all-time high line. I didn't draw perfectly, but it's around that 69K area. We, of course, had the high here in March at around 74,000. And if we go to the weekly, where's that 50-week moving average? it's getting up towards the 74,000. So again, this to me, the orange line would be sort of the line in the sand, worst case scenario. For any of you who were in crypto last year, when there was this big sell off, the whole yen carry trade unwind, all that in August, you can see it got a nice couple bounces, higher low off that 50-week moving average. But you don't have to bank on it getting there yet. Again, I'd be taking a look for support around 88K in the near term. Let's take a look at some other factors as far as, actually, let me draw the fib, or let me use a different indicator. One of the things we've been talking about lately is as far as cycle and where Bitcoin can go, we've been looking at the rainbow chart as well as the logarithmic regression on the weekly. And the last couple cycle tops have gotten in this red band on this logarithmic regression. You can see getting towards the middle or upper 3/4 of the way up in that band. And you'll note that that area, should there be a top sometime around March, you can see that date at the bottom. And by the way, these dates I got just from taking prior cycles, averaging out how long does it take to get from the very bottom of each cycle to the next peak. And there you go, that's the number. If Bitcoin got up in that area, that'd be around 130K. And then if we take the average from the halvings to the next peak, which would be around August or September, then we could be taking a look for a level around 150K. 150K is an interesting level. One, you may remember that we talked about that on the rainbow chart, 150K for your cycle. You can see that number right there in the light orange band. So getting up there. So I believe that we are closer to the top than we are to the bottom. Even though the price is in this yellow zone, you can see that the peaks have been going down in these bands. So instead of taking the average from the dark blue to the red, we'd be taking a look from the dark blue to the orange area. And we are closer to the top, I believe, than we are to the bottom. But if we also take a fib retracement, like the one I just erased, and again, I'll try to do this as accurate as I can. I'm going from the top to the bottom, and make sure your fib's off log. You can see the 2618 is right there at around 155K as well. So the 1618 to the 2618 is right in between this area. When Bitcoin gets above this 1618 and starts closing above, let's zoom way in here and let's take off that log regression. Too much going on right now. When it gets above that 1618 area and starts moving up, I think we are going to be very, very close to the top. So you can see last time Bitcoin made a peak in 2024, we are looking for weekly candle bodies to close above. When it's just wicks, then there's going to be retests of that area. You can see there were 3 main times it tested before coming down finally to strong support at the 50-week moving average and then blasting through. So we'll see what happens right here. We've already tested it once. I guess you could argue twice. And then maybe you want to see it get a bounce somewhere, maybe around that mid 80K area, 88 in the 20-week moving average, somewhere around 85K. So I would be taking a look at altcoins and mining stocks around this area, looking for possible discounts. And if it goes lower, fine, I'll dollar cost average it more. But I would definitely be looking for discounts here. And once you see candle bodies closing above this 1618 line at around 102K, that is a good area to look for possible beginnings of Altseason or what might happen with that. Speaking of Altseason, let's go over to Bitcoin dominance and see what it is doing here. So I'll take off the moving averages in a second here, but you can see that Bitcoin dominance came down to the 50-week moving average. So next time it comes down and breaks underneath that, then we'll have the 100 and the 200 to contend with. So let's take this off and make it less confusing here. I did draw this wedge formation last week, and you can see this recent wick came right up to it. And so it'll be interesting. Is it going to break up and out or which way? Because anytime we have these wedges forming, there's usually a big move one way or the other, whichever direction it breaks out. So as far as Bitcoin dominance, the last two cycles, when we've seen that rotation, you can see it reflected right here. It only took a month in 2017 and only took about 6 weeks in 2021. That is when there's a large rotation of all the money that's in crypto and Bitcoin, especially going into the altcoins. Right now, there's more money in Bitcoin than there's ever been before, right? Close to $2 trillion. That's way more than last time. So there's even more money to rotate into altcoins if you are lucky and pick the right ones. There is good profits to be made. So keep an eye on Bitcoin dominance as far as what that does right there. Let's take a look at Tether dominance. We haven't looked at this in a while. This Tether dominance line has shown pretty well where local tops are. You can see that's where the 2017 top is, the 2019 mid-cycle top, the top before COVID, the double top last cycle, and of course the couple recent tops. Tether, by the way, it has a value of $1, and so people put their money into Tether when things are really volatile and they want their money to be safe. They want to retain their Satoshi value. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum, see what that's doing. So Ethereum kept challenging the, let's make sure our fib is correct here, so I'm speaking to you accurately. Oh, you have to do this first. There we go. And so Ethereum was challenging the 888 fib up here and then has lost the 786. So if Ethereum kept going down, we'd be taking a look at. Now we could throw our moving averages back on. That's why we have both of these, because you can see the 50 week moving average. But if it did come down another fib area and Ethereum got to the mid 20 or the mid 2000 area, that'd probably be a great discounted area to buy some Ethereum. A couple of things I wanted to take a look at before finishing up this video is just some different RSI charts as far as just keeping things in perspective. Okay, so if we zoom way out, let's hide a couple of these things. If we zoom way out and let's go to the monthly scale, you can see here's where all the different Bitcoin tops are. The white lines, by the way, those are the halvings. The yellow lines is when price was breaking former all-time high. The red lines are the tops, just so you know. But a couple things that I want to take a look at were different RSIs and where we are as far as strength, just comparing to the past. So you can see that at these cycle peaks, the RSI, this is on the ultimate RSI, which is an indicator I like a lot. You can see there's still room to run. And I think the 4-year cycle is still possibly in play. You can see that when this is just last cycle, when it crossed past new all-time highs, that was November 2020, it was about 6 months to the top, and when there was Altseason. Of course, 2017, it took a bit longer. That was in November 2016. The top was a year away. And so I've said maybe 6 months to a year away from where we've crossed up. And right here, that was November of last year. So 6 months to a year away, it gives a 4-year cycle from either of these points from the double top last cycle. So keep an eye on April and keep an eye on the later part of 2025 if the rainbow chart 4-year cycle continues. And you can see here, December 2013, December 2017, November 2021. There was a peak here in Altseason. We had the stimulus inflows and all the money printing, so we'll see how that affects this cycle. But I think the data is leading me to believe more and more that it is going to be more of a 4-year cycle, closer to that. If we take a look at the Stochastic RSI, you can see how we have these double peaks. And right now we are in double peak time. And so you can see again, it crossed up in November, crossed up here, October, very close to what the ultimate RSI was showing us on the dates when it got to overbought. And something with the RSIs to remember is RSIs is just a strength. It's not always a one-to-one comparison of price and where price is going. It's a comparison of the strength of the price movements. So are we going to see as strong of price movements as we've had in the past? Well, you can see each cycle is a little bit different. Last cycle, there were some weaker strength movements compared to 2017, but 2017 compared to 2013 was a lot stronger. So are we due for a lot stronger of a movement where it stays up higher for longer? That's an argument to be made. If we take a look at the Bitcoin dominance, what I think is interesting is that from the peaks, you can see here September 2019, and then let's go into the weekly to show this. You can see the first peak was, again, September 2019, and here in 2017, that was July 2017. So sort of inversely in the dominance chart, there was about 6 months from the first initial large peak in dominance to the bottom. Okay, here there was about a year and a half. And so again, you just take the average of those 2 times. That could be about a year from November 2024. Again, 4-year cycle. I think there's more and more showing us that there's time to wait if there is an alt season. Going back to the ultimate RSI, at least taking a look at that on the weekly, what do you notice here? The RSI, the strength hasn't broken down yet. We keep waiting for this to happen. The strength has stayed up higher for longer than it's ever done before. And you can see that's a phenomena that's been increasing each cycle. And so once this starts to truly break down and get underneath this high 60% area, then it might be time to start getting excited and looking for profits in your altcoin. So again, this could take some time to break down. When it broke down last cycle, that was January 2020. It was over a year from that point when Altseason was just starting. Okay, and then if you want to consider this peak, because it did touch the overbought area, look at that date, December 2016, about a year away. So those are just some things to keep in mind. What I think this is showing us, again, I'm not trying to predict exactly when the top's going to be. I'm just trying to give you some ideas and show how there's data from a lot of different time frames, a lot of different metrics and indicators to show us, to lead us to believe, at least if your hypothesis was a 4-year cycle, there's a lot of things to show that. But on this channel, I try to answer the essential question: is now a good time to buy, take profits? We're closer to taking profits as reflected on the rainbow chart, but we haven't had alt season yet. Okay, so there might still be good times to buy with your altcoins. Subscribe if you want to hear more about that. I do chart analysis on different altcoins available on Coinbase, on Robinhood, as well as the as well as the mining stocks. And so we are still seeing discounts available in many of these. Should we get another alt season, then there are still discounts to be had. I would say right now, especially with the current price action on the weekly, something you can look for is confirmation, whether it's a buy signal. Let me turn that one on too. Whether it's these moving averages, you saw the Fibonacci retracement I drew back on there before. The daily, we have the moving averages here. You can take a look at for more confirmation to the upside through those different indicators. The Stochastic RSI, let's bring that one back up as well. We'll do a couple more and then we'll leave it here. So the Stochastic RSI on the daily, it's flipping up, but on the weekly, it's still coming down a bit. So we want to see it start to turn. And then another indicator that's good for confirmation to the upside as well is taking a look at the moving average convergence. Divergence, also known as the MACD, on the weekly, it looking kind of bad as well. So if this were to break down for a bit, you could see it getting even lower. But if we take a look at that on the daily, this downward move, it might stall over here and then get a bounce off the 100. But then where's it going to be on the weekly? Are we going to see sort of a double positive hill like we did back here as it was moving up and we had this minor correction? Or is it going to come down kind of like we saw back in March? And this kind of compares more to March. So just some things to keep in mind is that there could be some bearishness or some downward sideways price action. We've seen that reflected in fear and greed and the stochastic and the MACD. as well as the moving averages. We're looking for supports and confirmation. And there are still discounts to be had. There is still time before an alt season like the ones we've been waiting for that have happened in the past at these former peaks, 2017, 2021. That's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Take care.